To put it academically, this book is hot doo-doo fart. The best way to describe this book would be, imagine you're one of those guys or gals at the bank that approves loans. You're a loan officer, if you would, and you have the option to help out small businesses, and you have one of those big stamps that says approved, and you also have another one that says denied. And you notice someone walk in, but that someone isn't a someone, it's a dog. And that dog is dressed up as a gullible nerd from the 1800s. He tells you his story, and you deny him, of course, because he's a dog. And then he comes back dressed as a bisexually frustrated musical genius from the 1930s. This time, you deny him again, but then he comes back as a nepotist baby crime reporter with an inferiority complex from the 1970s. Then, some geriatric book publisher in the early 2000s, and again as an android that works in a McDonald's in the year 2100. Finally, they come back as a backwoods simpleton from the distant future where humanity has destroyed itself and we have devolved back into tribalistic troglodytes. Then at the end, the dog asks you if you could tell it was him the whole time, just dressed as different people in different costumes. And you're like, of course, obviously, you're a dog and not a human. That's what this book is like. But imagine Mitchell is a dog trying to get you to believe that he wrote an entertaining book. Shat-las is a fictitious tale of 6 individuals connected in a mysterious and intertwining tale that depicts the nature of humanity throughout history and the future. The novel toys with the intricacies of fate, power, and moral ambiguity. There are strong themes of oppression showcased in unique and multiplicitous ways. Mitchell boasts his ability as a literary chameleon through distinct protagonist voices and writing styles, proving, if nothing else, that he can imitate anyone but someone I would want to read. He is a master of wordsmithing and philosophy, but somewhere between the ambition and execution, Cloud Atlas morphed from a boldly experimental, great novel into one massive, steamy, pretentious, performative, 509-page pile of shit. This book is ass. I wasted precious time that I'll never get back trying to find meaning in this literary labyrinth. I fell for the fallacy that because this book was made into a movie, that it must be worth reading. I was wrong. The funny part is, I have never seen the movie, and at this point, I never will. But nonetheless, I attempted to read this piece of crap on 3 separate occasions prior to finally hate finishing it last week. I even got the audiobook to help me, but it did little in terms of my level of enjoyment. That being said, it took me over 10 years to get through this book. So after all this time, I have a lot to say. This book is literally just 6 short stories cut in half, chopped and screwed, and sewn back together with simple and repetitive themes and what feels like an ode to the human centipede in the form of storytelling. The overt themes of oppression and ignorance and corruption are present from the first story and are increasingly and incessantly restated in different dialects until you finally end the suffering by DNFing or brute forcing your way to the end. Precious San Mi, the futuristic clinker, is the only redeeming portion of this book. She is compelling, relatable, and intriguing. She's a protagonist whose character arc resembles something like a parabola, unlike the flapjack flat personalities of her counterparts. Coincidentally, she's the only character that is not a human in the book. It's crazy because the only thing that also stands out to me is the dumbass caveman from the super future, which is actually painful to read. Mitchell tried to write in a dialect of some watered down Appalachian slang that is actually just a headache to wade through. Mitchell candidly admitted in an interview one day that he leisurely opened Microsoft Word and in less than an hour and without much thought cut the stories in half and assembled them in this monstrosity posing as a groundbreaking literature. This story is organized in a nesting doll style, which is thankfully not utilized very often, and it's really easier to understand through a visual representation, which I'm going to provide here. As you can probably tell from looking at this stupid diagram, it's a bad way to tell a story. Where Mitchell decides to split the story isn't clean either. He just abruptly stops out of nowhere and then picks up in the next story, and it is really jarring and completely infuriating. I personally hated it. Upon jumping from one tale to the next, Mitchell attempts to carry over the atmospheric presence of the previous narrative through references. A letter here, a movie there, a piece of music that echoes through time, trying to whisper reincarnation. However, instead of appearing clever, he comes off as lazy and gimmicky. I repeatedly found myself asking, why am I reading this? Or better yet, why write this? Every plot is dull. Every character is boring. Even Somni. She's just the least boring. World building is damn near non-existent, and Mitchell's obsession with philosophy eclipses any chance of an enjoyable narrative. He gets so caught up in jerking his own McGurkin that he forgot to write a story that somebody would actually want to read. Yes, there was symbolism, there was foreshadowing, there was profound prose and a glimmer of real insight. That I can't deny. But nuance is lost in the repetition. There are good ideas and they're smothered by over intellectualism. Mitchell should write a nonfiction philosophy book. That's probably his true calling. I full heartedly believe that the menage a trois of Mitchell fiction and entertainment are a match made in hell. I do not recommend this book to anyone aside from a masochist seeking their next kick. I give this book a very generous 4 out of 10. It has some interesting concepts with horrible delivery,